I realized how important it was to know how to play a note. So let me just tell you, what students have to put up with me is on the accordion, it's not enough to just be able to play it, but to do it in a special way. So some of these students have incredible digital capacity. They have amazing technique. But they were so focused on technique, I said, we've got to do more than just play lots of notes. I've got to get you to learn how to play a single note. So the first thing, there are 4 components to the playing of a note on the accordion, and it could be for any musical instrument, I guess. But for me, the first thing is the DNA of a note is its time. So the point at which you make the contact with the note, that minuscule sound, however you produce it, is the rhythmic point. Okay, and then what you have to learn to do with the mechanical lung, which becomes like a human lung, because I treat it more like a vocalist, singing. So a lot of times what I will do is take the inflection and put the jelly in the donut, which means I'll play over the bar line and play through the note, and you probably were hearing some of that, and it's not the accordion that sounds that nicely, it's what I do with it. So you now have to find the way in which you create the right intensity from the shoulder or the arm into the note itself rhythmically. So, a lot of times you've seen me doing some pretty strange things with the body moving. You see what I do, I don't play the intensity at the beginning of the note. So so if you just pull and push, that's what you're going to get. Which sounds beautiful, but notice so what I'm doing is I'm taking away from the intensities and so I'm regulating the degree of what I call the variable flow of the tone quality to the note after I know where the rhythmic point is. Then what you do is you try to create what we call the continuity. So that means I think linearly, like a singer, even if I'm playing a waltz. Whatever that is. But you see, if you play vertically, so what you're doing is you're playing on the bar line, but I try to play. So I'm playing through, that's that linear flow, which is a little more vocal than it would be rhythmic, even though my technique is kind of rhythmic, right? So that's that. And then the final thing is the degree in which you project your sound in space. So those 4 elements, rhythmic point, controlling the variableness of tone color, the degree of horizontal flow, and matched to the projection in space, is the way in which you play the microscopic single note. How you find a single note, then you can apply to millions of notes. You see, here's another thing. If I'm doing the variation, so what's happening is that I'm not playing the weight the same way on every note. I don't have that weight. This is the weight on every note. And this is without it. The other thing that's happening is the left hand. I try to teach the left hand so that the left hand doesn't play with the right hand. So my 2 hands are totally separate. So it's actually playing this way instead of like a rabbit hopping. Because when you hear, what's happening is the left hand and the right hand, the chord is played exactly what the right hand notes, but so you can take the simplest thing but not make it. It gets it on your nerves, So I always tried to bury how I play time and phrase it so it's quite smooth, The result is that when I'm playing very complex things, all of these elements I've just explained to you in a very simple way are part of how I'm playing the accordion, but you don't know it. You don't know what it is I'm doing, but in fact, in everything I play, there is this control element. So let me play something which is more hostile than most, and this is done on the free bass. So I kind of, at the opening of it, what I'm going to do is, these hands are not together, but I'm not supposed to play them together. The rhythmic phrasing is one inside the other, and then I start to kind of imitate, and then I start to create noise with the beating. It's very deliberate. You'll hear me when I'm playing it. You're going to hear the rattling of the keys, and then I'll bend a note at the very end. Okay, I'm just going to play part of this. These pieces take too long to do, so. When you, thank you. When you're bending a note, what you do is you have to, your finger doesn't really play, it plays it down, then you lift it out. And as you're lifting it out, you increase the bellow pressure on it. Detunes it a bit. You know, so there's a lot of that kind of thing going on in these pieces. Something else that's very powerful technique on the accordion is the bellow shake. And I mean, you know, with Meyer and Florin and these guys, I mean, they were great. They were doing what they were doing. And the most obvious bellow shake was the, you know, you heard it in, you know, when you do you know, and what you do is you just basically pull in and out. And a lot of composers were using that bellow shake, you know. But you know what's interesting is you can rotate the corners, and you create what I call a kind of ricochet or a triplet effect. So instead of, so you can do that kind of thing, which is really much more dramatic. And I know at the end of the Schaefer thing in La Testa, I showed him that, and he actually incorporated it, you know, so you're playing a lot of these clusters. But they, and it sounds very dramatic and very effective. But some composers, here's an example in this work of a German composer. He uses the bellow shake, just standard one. thing. Wow. Okay. So, I mean, so there are many, many techniques, and how the composer decides to use it is really important. Another thing we can do, and this is blasphemous actually, but using the bellow shake. I mean, here's an example. You can play, for instance, this is out of the Bach toccata and fugue, but out of the toccata, you know, you can play the, which sounds great, and that's how we normally would do it. But you know what? If you want to really impress people, you can do it. You know, so you use the bellow shake for that, and it's wow, it sounds so great, you know. But these are things we would do, you know, we would cheat. In the interest of creating a kind of hyper explosive effect with an audience. Certain audiences would like it. I wouldn't do it if I was playing for musicologists. You know, that kind of thing. So I'm first of all, let me so this idea of playing melodically, which you heard in Bill's piece or whatever. So, you know, you can play straight, the intensity from one note to the other. And that's correct, you know, I can make it more legato. Here's an interesting thing you wouldn't notice, but a lot of times when I'm playing, if I want to play just straight digitally, but if I want to slur that, so what's happening is my hand takes on a curve. You get the sense it's not. That's when we want to just play the technique. We play straight. And if you want to bend it, you create that melodic slur. But now I'm going to do it. I'm going to take those notes and I'm going to take the intensity out of some of them and give it into others. See, this is not the same. See this one? Now this A flat is less than the C. And then I drop the G as well. And then you can do these little vibratos. So this is very vocal playing. I'm just doing it because it's Italian. Yeah. Well, I used to, you know, I know Peter DeSoto used to hate it. You know, we'd be playing. And I do that to the audience, you know, and there are girls in the front row. And he says, "You're pulling focus." I said, "I know." There are so many ways you can do vibratos, you know, with the hands, with the bellow shakes, with your fingers. You know, I used to copy what violin players would do, you know. An example like that bellow shake. You know. So you can do all that kind of thing with the way in which you manipulate the technique of playing the accordion. So these are just some of the small things, you know. Yeah. You know, I mean, I could have played some full pieces for you, but I thought it'd be kind of nice to just share with you the kinds of things, the complexities. You know, I'm not just playing at the accordion. Actually, the accordion becomes like musically one with me, and of course you phrase with others that are playing around you. I try to encourage the students I have so that they don't develop that sense of wanting to play by themselves, but how well they integrate with other musicians. It's very important that the accordion is embraced and brought into the family of playing with other instruments, you know. Because very often accordionists would play in bands and they would be the leader. And then the band would accompany, you know, and everybody was good in that. But it's changed so much since I first started as a kid to what we're trying to do now with these young kids who are trying to make a career with the instrument, which is difficult no matter what instrument you pick, and even more difficult with the accordion, because you have to be twice as good to prove yourself. So I've been very hard on them, you know, to make sure that they incorporate not only the ability to play well, technically, but also to develop this awareness of how you can breathe with this instrument, the secret of the lungs, and all the other idiomatic things you can do when you play, you know. Yeah, so that's a little bit of insight.